Question 25, we're asked to find the slope of the line if it exists. And in this case, what differentiates this type of question from question 23 and 24 that we just looked at is instead of being given two ordered pairs, we have been given a graph of a line and asked to find the slope. So again, like I've done for just about every graphing question, I'm going to zoom in on this graph so we can actually see what we're looking at here. Now, you can do this in one of two ways. Notice that this graph has identified, through the use of red points, two specific ordered pairs. So you can do the formula like we did in question 23 and 24, meaning you can say, all right, I am going to identify this as the ordered pair -5. Oops, not negative. I was thinking -3. That's our y value. You can identify this point as -5, -3, and you can identify this point up here as -1, +4, and then use the slope formula m equals y2 minus y1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1 once you've labeled your points. You can absolutely do that. Or what you might find a little easier to do is because you've got the graph of this line, remember that slope is simply rise over run. And you know what? Maybe what I'll do is I'll use different colors here. So slope is rise over run. And so since the rise refers to the change in y, we'll say rise in pink. And since run refers to the change in x, we'll say run in blue. So let's see here. How do we get from this point in the bottom left to this point in the upper right here? Well, how many units did we shift up? Well, let's see. We started here at -3, right? This looks like -3. If this is -2 and this is -4, right in the middle would be -3. So we go from -3 up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So we went up 7 units. That was our rise. So let's pop that in. Rise over. And how many units are we going to run? Well, when we go up 7 units, we're right here. And to run, we would go 1, 2, 3, 4 units. So the rise over run, the slope of this line is 7 over 4. So because we were given the actual graph of this line, you may find it much easier to just simply count how many units are you going up or down and how many units are you running on the x-axis. And so for this one, we're going to say the slope is 7 over 4. And because it's a fraction, you may want to choose to click the fraction button here at the bottom, and that gives us a blank fraction. So we'll say 7 over 4. Perfectly valid way of doing this question. But let's go back and actually do it the algebraic way, which would be what we did in question 23 and 24. So again, if we identify the ordered pair for this red point down here, which I think we said was -5, -3, and if we identify the ordered pair for this point here, which we said was -1, +4, we can go ahead and algebraically verify that this is in fact the correct slope, this 7 over 4. So we have 2 points again. Let's go ahead and say -1, +4, and we have -5 and -3. So we can label these as our x sub 1 and x sub 2, and then we can label as y sub 1, y sub 2. All right, so we're ready to go, and let's plug in this information and see what we get. So we're going to have m is equal to, and what's y sub 2 based on how we labeled? Well, y sub 2 is -3, minus, that minus comes from the formula, y sub 1, which we have labeled as +4, and that is all over x sub 2, which we have labeled as -5, minus, and this minus comes from the formula, x sub 1. Well, what's x sub 1? Based on how we labeled, we have a -1. All right, fair enough. Let's see what we end up with when we clean this up. Let's distribute here, distribute here. So upstairs we have negative 3 minus 4 all over, and downstairs we'll have negative 5 plus 1. So when we clean this up, negative 3 minus 4 is negative 7 over, and downstairs negative 5 plus 1 is negative 4. And remember, a negative divided by a negative is always positive, and so we end up with the slope 7 over 4, which is exactly what we got when we found the slope using the visual approach, which was just counting the number of units you rise or fall and then counting the number of units you run. So again, either way you're going to get the same answer, but because a test in the classroom is limited to a finite amount of time, you may find that for this particular question, no matter what the points are on this graph that you're given, you may find the visual method quicker to getting the exact same result that you would through algebra. And of course, any amount of time that you can save on a test in class can be used on a question that maybe you are finding a little more challenging. But at any rate, question 25 rather, we have our slope of 7 over 4.